digging your grave, mate. That's what she's doing. That's what she's out there. Like, that's why she wants you in the kitchen, so you don't see what she's doing.
I've made it controversial, but especially Pakistani boys. Most of them are happy to be staying in the same environment that they have been.
That's your husband's parents, that's your husband's siblings. You want to have a good relationship with them, because especially like us, we moved to a different city, we want to have people around us that we like can hang out with.
Yeah.
And that, obviously, living with your in-laws is not a negative experience for everyone.
Hey everyone, assalamu alaikum, welcome back to my channel. We have a very special guest once again.
Hi guys.
It's Maria, and today we wanted to do a video responding to comments in one of my previous videos about living with your in-laws. And I thought I'd bring Maz on because she gives really good advice.
I don't think I do, but
she does, trust me, she does. And also it's cool to have a different perspective as well. So
yeah, I agree, to be fair. Yeah.
And that video has done pretty well. Like, we've got quite a few comments here, so some of them we're just gonna read aloud and
our facial expressions will probably say more than anything else. I feel like I talk from my expressions.
You'll be able to tell how Maria feels, like based on her face. No, but we want to like give our opinions and our advice, but also this is coming from a place of non-judgment completely. Even if you are not married yet and you're sort of thinking like, I'm never gonna live with my in-laws, I feel like we should just be compassionate towards everybody, because
I agree,
we don't know their circumstances.
And also circumstances can change.
Absolutely, yeah. So I wanted to start off by saying that we're not coming at this being like, well, you shouldn't do this, or you shouldn't do that. Like, we're just giving advice based on some of the comments that have been left on here,
and just our perspective, really.
And feel free to give your perspective too, or like if you have a particular like answer that's different to ours, we'd love to hear it in the comments. But yeah, we've got a lot of things to get through, so we've both got the video up and we're going to just be reading through them. And there is quite a few people saying that they'd like an advice video on living with in-laws, so we'll probably be giving advice within this video, but if you want a specific one afterward, then feel free to let me know.
You'll be better at the advice because you've actually lived with your in-laws.
Yeah, sorry, we didn't even talk about that. Yeah, that's true. That's true. So I've been married for almost 3 years now, alhamdulillah. And for one of those years, I've lived with my in-laws. And Maria got married recently. Yeah, we got a newlywed in the house.
Oh wait, hold on. I feel like we've missed our, oh my goodness, we missed our 2-month anniversary. Like, we're the worst. It was last month where Iqra was like, oh my god, it's your 1-month anniversary. And I was like, is it? It's like, oh my lord, like I just totally forgot. I came home to my husband, I was like, it's our 1-month anniversary. He's like, is it? I was like, why same? Like, I did not realise.
It's because they both work full time and are super busy, mashallah, you know, and they've got stuff going on.
Because do you know what's so funny? Like, all the time I'm like, how do people forget their anniversary? And I'm like, oh my god, I'm going to be one of those persons.
Literally. Listen, life gets busy, it's fine.
True.
Like, but yeah, 2 months, mashallah. So alhamdulillah. But also, obviously, we come from this with like other people's experiences as well, like in our lives, like aunties, friends, cousins, that sort of thing. Should I start? Because a lot of these are just really sweet.
Oh, you did have really nice comments on your.
Seriously, they're so sweet.
Followers are very nice.
It's really, really nice. So someone says, "Thank you for being so open. I live with my in-laws too, and I feel you when sometimes you just want to be by yourself and you can't always do that. Alhamdulillah, my in-laws are amazing too, so it hasn't been too bad." Which I wanted to read out because I feel like a lot of the content out there about in-laws is very
negative.
Yeah, it's very like it'll be the worst thing ever.
Yeah,
which it might be. We're not here to be like,
no,
it's gonna be fine.
Definitely. I think a lot of the time people prefer to speak about their negative experience. Like, it's almost just an outlet to just get it out of their system. And I think maybe people are quite conscious to speak about their good experience because they don't want like evil eye or like, you know, anything like that
true.
As well.
That is true.
And also not to like rub it in other people's faces as well, because you do hear a lot of stories talking about in-laws and it's like a lot of negative experiences. So it's refreshing to see that. But I actually like her point when she was like, oh, I just want to be on my own sometimes. And I like, it's funny because living, like, at home with my mom and my brother, and just, I used to feel like that too. Like, if I come home from work, I want to go straight to my room and just not talk to somebody for, like, an hour. And I feel like if you're living with your in-laws, sometimes that might come across as rude, like, oh, she's just come home, she's not said anything to anybody. Or if you're in your room for too long, like, they're like, why is she just sitting in her room? And I know, like, obviously if you have good in-laws, you're not going to say anything like that, they'll respect your space.
But you don't even want them to think that.
Yeah, it's that guilt that you feel that you're like, I should be sitting with my in-laws, I should be constantly with them, I should be giving them company. And I respect that, actually, that comment, because, like, I would totally understand. Like, although you have a good relationship with your in-laws, sometimes you need space. And you need space from everyone.
Even
not
your
just,
husband.
like, 100%. Like, you can't be with the same person constantly, because you will just go, like... Yeah,
crazy. It's not... Yeah, exactly. And I think that's a very good point. Like, I think over time, if you live with them for an extended period of time, like, you'll get into a good balance and a rhythm. 100%. Especially if, like you said, like, they're really lovely and they're respectful. But yeah, that's a really good point. Okay, this lady said, I second all of this except my mother-in-law has been much more challenging. Bonding is why I agreed to do it in the first place, like, her bonding into the family. However, having a baby has just amplified some of the cons when I naively thought it would make things better. I myself wouldn't recommend it for newlyweds. Our honeymoon, finding our feet as a couple phase was spent in front of other people, and naturally when living with anyone else opened us for opinions and criticism and judgment. As much as I'm one of the lucky ones, and I definitely could have ended up worse off, there are some things Asians just don't understand or will do which is hurtful regardless.
Yeah, hit the nail on the head, to be honest.
Yeah.
I think it's so true, especially for, like, a Muslim couple. A marriage is just something, into a relationship is completely different, because, like, I mean, essentially, you're not really supposed to have relationships before marriage.
Yeah, you're not.
So that's something new already, and you having to do that so freshly in front of your in-laws, it does open you up to criticism. You know, if you want to do something in a certain way, if you want to live in a certain way, your in-laws will probably have something to say about it. And, you know, the way that she's spoken about her mother-in-law, it does seem like maybe she's had a bit of a challenging time with her. And I get it, like, it's so nice that you decided to live with her, to bond with her, but I think it comes a time where you have to take a step back and think, well, this is just not working. And if you've put that effort in, and you can genuinely say, like, I have tried and it's not worked, it comes to a time where you have to speak with your husband, and hopefully he'll support you. Now that you have a child as well, like, you want your child to grow up in a nice environment. And if you're maybe not having a good relationship with your mother-in-law, that will have an effect on you. You might not be able to give your child, like, the best of you as well, if you're constantly feeling sad, upset about certain things. As soon as you take yourself away from that kind of negative household, you might actually find that you do become a better mother, a better wife, a better, like, not that you're not already, but I feel like you will see a significant improvement in your life. And I know it's easy for me to say that, because, like, I'm not living your life, but if you're feeling so strongly about it, you need to take steps, otherwise your life is just going to continue being the same thing every single day, and you're just going to get more and more upset, and that upset will be channeled in places that you just don't want it to come out in.
I totally agree, and I think that whenever we say speak to your husband or like move out, we are saying it knowing full well that it's not as easy as we're just gonna wake up one day and have our own place, and we know it's not that simple, but no one can make a change in your life but you. Like, you can listen to us all day long saying it, but, like, it genuinely has to come from you. Like, I'm sorry, most husbands are comfortable in their parents' house. Most husbands are happy to live there and continue, especially, I'm going to be maybe a bit controversial here, but especially Pakistani boys. Most of them are happy to be staying in the same environment that they have been because they're comfortable. Like, if you think about our own selves as well. I mean, personally, I was ready to move out. I was ready to start that new, like, chapter of my life. But a lot of men are very happy for it to stay the same. So unless you start that conversation and put that intention in place and, like, say, you know, this is something that's important to me, I feel like it's not going to happen, like, magically by itself. Like,
and also, it's not going to happen overnight. Like, you might have to have several different conversations about it. It might, you know, if you have the first conversation, he's like, I don't know. Like, nothing is stopping you from constantly bringing it up. You know, maybe every now and then just be like, you know, it's still making me feel horrible. I've still tried. It's still not working.
Yeah.
You should keep trying. Persistency is key. Like, at the end of the day, your husband's duty is to kind of make you happy. And you have to make him
and vice
happy
versa,
too.
yeah.
So
yeah.
if you're in a situation that can easily change, then he should be taking steps to help you make that change.
Absolutely. Totally agree. Okay, someone says the whole concept of living with in-laws is just really weird and definitely not healthy at all. How are you supposed to enjoy your new marriage and partner with his family present in the house? There is literally no privacy. It's a very backwards tradition that the South Asian diaspora needs to get rid of immediately. And that comment got 21 thumbs up.
Mic drop.
Boom. So, yeah, what do we think about that, Maz?
I mean...
Do you want me to...
Well, to be fair, I see that comment. Whilst I completely 100% do agree with it, I do think it comes from a privileged perspective.
Yeah.
I think it comes from a perspective of somebody who's never had to live with their in-laws, for somebody who has very much probably never really
even thought
about it. You know, like, I think some people forget that people's circumstances change. You never know what's going to happen after you get into marriage. What if your in-laws fall ill and you're the only people that can look after them and you have to live with them? Or, you know, what if one of you lose your job, or you both lose your job? You know, you've just had a global pandemic.
Yeah, like, exactly.
Nothing is certain.
No.
During a pandemic, you know, we're probably going to have somewhat of an economic crash at some point, and God knows.
It's coming.
God knows. God knows what's going to happen then. Do you know what I mean?
It's true. It's definitely a privileged perspective.
Yeah, 100%. But I do agree. I think, and again, I'm coming from a privileged perspective when I say this. When I say I agree with the comment, because I've never had to live with my in-laws, and actually my family have always been of the opinion that, Maria, you're not living with your in-laws. We want you to have your own place. We want you, you know, we're not going to allow you to get married unless you do have your own place.
Yeah.
And my family have always been like of that point of view.
Yeah.
We want you to be in your own place. You know, we don't care who you marry as long as they're Muslim, but we want you to have, you know, your own space. And to be honest, I'm very lucky to have good in-laws.
Yeah, alhamdulillah.
Yeah, we both are.
We are.
We genuinely, like, so we do, like, and come from a privileged perspective.
Definitely. Like, we can't relate to...
You have lived with your in-laws.
I have lived with my in-laws, but I can't relate to people who've got controlling in-laws, because mine are really not controlling at all.
Lovely.
Really sweet, really accepting, and they just want us to be happy. Like,
yeah, I think that's the fact of the matter. That's why when you moved out, like, you know, you were able to move out because they just wanted you to be happy.
Everyone was, like, really happy for that to happen. Obviously, like, my father-in-law, like, loves everyone to be together, but you don't have to live together to be together. Yeah. And if anything, I feel like when you move out of... So for example, the person before this comment, she said that, you know, her relationship with her in-laws is not the best because her mother-in-law is challenging. See your in-laws regularly, but not live with them. It's a better relationship most of the time because that time is dedicated to them. Yeah. So you don't feel like when you're living with them, it's like you constantly have to be thinking like, oh, should I be doing this? Should I be doing that? Whereas when you're going over to visit, it's like, yeah, like this, I've come to see you. We've come to, like, spend time together.
Yeah, I agree.
It's a different dynamic.
And also, like, I feel like if you're living with your in-laws, you're going to get to a point where you just run out of stuff to talk about.
Yeah.
And maybe that's where, like, you know, when she's saying she's trying with her mother-in-law and it's like nothing's really, it's challenging, and it's like maybe she just doesn't know how to talk to you as well. Like,
True.
I find that,
it's
like,
a different generation.
Yeah, it's a different generation, and I think sometimes, like, maybe she's trying in her certain ways and, like, you're trying in your ways and it's just clashing.
It's true.
So I mean, that's fine as well, to be honest.
Yeah. What do you think about saying that it's not healthy at all to live with your in-laws? Especially she said it's
probably should have listened.
She goes, it's definitely not healthy at all, or I'm just assuming. How are you supposed to enjoy your new marriage with the whole family present?
I wouldn't say it's unhealthy. I'd say it will create some
tension.
It will create tensions in some ways. I think especially when you're newly married, like I said before.
Yeah.
you have a lot of like eyes on you regardless.
Yeah.
Like,
and it's a hard time regardless.
Yeah, like you're essentially learning about a brand new person.
Yeah.
And like you can know that person your entire life, but as soon as you live with somebody, it's a whole different ballgame.
As Mari has found out in the last few months.
Like, you know, I love my husband, but like there's things that I'm now learning about him that I didn't know because I'd never lived with him before.
And you can't.
And not to say they're
know.
negative things. Yeah. No. But like it's like
already getting married and living with a man is a big challenge. And then I think to a certain extent I do agree that it is hard to fully be yourself, but I think already, like we said,
I wouldn't say it's unhealthy though. Sorry, my like feet are dead. I wouldn't say it's unhealthy. I would say it would just maybe create a bit of tension to begin with. And it'd be harder. Yeah.
However, I said in my original video that I still think it's easier to get married and live straight with your in-laws and then move out than what Iqra and I did, which is we got married, had our own space, and then moved in with in-laws. Yeah. Because in a way, you can always like have your own space later on, but when you're used to something as a couple, and then you have to go to a different dynamic, that can be its own level challenging. So
that would probably create more tension than like living with your in-laws initially and then moving out, because you're so used to your own space. All of a sudden, like, especially if you go into in-laws, fair enough if it's just the mum and dad, but see if it's like an entire family where there's already like maybe another set of people, another couple in that kind of environment too, and there's a lot of different characters, a lot of different like personalities, so easy to clash. And sometimes you're so used to having such a silent house, all of a sudden like there's so many people and you're like, oh my goodness,
it's a big change. It's a big change. Like, alhamdulillah, like it was like, I already spoke about my experience, I'm not going to go too much into it, this video is not about that, but alhamdulillah it was fine, and like everyone made it as comfortable as they could. But I agree to the extent of having your own space is really beneficial. I'll leave it at that.
And also, like, I'm just going to hop on to the back of that. I think I agree with that, because also you're a hijabi. Yeah. And I think it's so much harder for hijabis, like, to, you know, sometimes you just want to have your hair out. Yeah. Or sometimes you just don't want to be wearing trousers in the house. Like, come on. Exactly. Like, it's your own house. Let's not act like we don't look like slobs half the time in our own homes.
Listen.
Like, come on, before Iqra came and had a slap of makeup on, I was just like, God damn.
No, it's true. It's your home. Like, you should feel 100% comfortable.
And that's not to say like you won't feel comfortable at your in-laws, but it'll be a different level of comfort than if it was at your own home. Definitely. Where you can wear whatever you want, say whatever you want, do whatever you want. Yeah. Do you know what I mean?
And even like, for example, when I lived with my parents, I was still dressed modestly because like I just would, right? Course. Whereas like Iqra and I having our own space, which is only ours, that's a whole new level of freedom. Now, when you've had that freedom and then you have to revert to a much stricter way of being in the house,
difficult.
It is hard. It is hard. So I think the compromises that you make, and I think especially because like most of you are women, and some of you are not, because we'll go on to that in a minute, but most of you are women, I think you really need to think about like how much are you compromising for your marriage. That's reasonable, and that's not, again, we are not saying like move out tomorrow, go and get a new home, like we know it's not easy, but at the same time you really need to question like a lot of you guys are searching that video, living with in-laws, and finding that video, and then there's quite a few comments that we'll get onto which are not resentful towards me but resentful towards the situation that they're in. And I just feel like the reason why I wanted to make this video and with Mari as well was because I just think a lot of the times it can feel like we're stuck in an impossible situation, but we have the power and the tools, especially living in the UK, to change that. We just have to really fight for it. So we'll get into that. But someone says, I hate when the mother-in-law expects the new daughter-in-law to do everything in the house after the wedding. Why? You behave as if it's just your houses and you did everything before too. Keep doing it. Which I think she's trying to say before they got married.
Oh my god!
Before they got married, the mother-in-law was doing everything anyway. So why is she expecting the daughter-in-law to do everything? Which I agree with. Like, no mother-in-law should expect her daughter-in-law to kind of come in and be essentially a maid, a slave. You know, like. That's not cool.
I think it's very common still in the South Asian community to And you know, like when you have that in-laws meeting and the daughter-in-law comes in with like a cup of tea, and it's like almost then being judged on how she can make a tea or like how she carries herself, and it's that way where it's like setting the tone for how it's going to be.
That's so true.
I think it's very much setting the tone.
That's so true.
This is what my in-laws are expecting. You know, this whole making them tea and I know that's so minor, but I always feel like that is setting the tone of how they are going to expect you to behave forever when you're living with them. And that's essentially kind of living by their rules, you know, being not a slave for them, but basically going above and beyond when they're doing very little. But also I don't agree with what she said when she's like, oh, the mother-in-law should continue doing everything. Like I know some mother-in-laws, and a lot of my friends who are married, you know, their mother-in-law and who are living with their in-laws continue to like act as is, and you know, don't expect the daughter-in-law to do anything, and that's great. But I also think like if you're choosing to move in with your in-laws, I think it is fair to say that you should maybe be lifting some sort of weight around the house.
Absolutely.
Even if it's, you know, cleaning the living room once a week. Like just something minor to show that, you know, you appreciate having this home to live with your in-laws. I don't think that's a lot to ask for, but I do not think that a daughter-in-law should be treated differently to a person, to your own daughter. Like that's not fair.
And there's so many stories of like someone who will treat their daughter like a queen and then their daughter-in-law like
Cinderella.
Way below. Exactly. And it's so sad that it's 2021 and like that scenario is still happening. I think again that situation would come back to communication to me. Like if you genuinely feel like that, speak to your husband. That's your husband's mother, and you know you should expect your husband to be able to speak to his parents. I don't know if I personally go to speak to my mother-in-law straight away. Okay, I know I wouldn't, because I'm not a confrontational kind of person at all. I would go straight to my husband. What would, like, if hypothetically you were in that situation?
I think I would go to my husband as well, just because I feel like if somebody is already acting in an unreasonable way, then it might be easier to speak to somebody who's not in that not directly in that situation, to kind of ask for some help, and maybe they can like talk to them. Because I think sometimes when you do speak to somebody and put across your perspective, they take it as a personal attack, and it's not a personal attack. You're just saying like, this is how I feel, and this is how you've made me feel. But often they'll be like, well, actually, you've just been mean to me by saying that. And it's like, cool. Tell me how I feel, and now all of a sudden they're like bad person.
Which is called gaslighting.
We're not here for that, guys.
No, not here for that at all. And
don't do that.
That's the advice you give afterwards, but beforehand as well. I don't think it's unreasonable at all. If you've agreed with your husband you're going to live with your in-laws for X amount of time, it's totally reasonable in my opinion to say, I expect to do, you know, like 20% of the work, or I expect to help out, but I do not expect to be taking over doing all the work. And what are your expectations of me? Like,
because
so
also
important.
I have heard of scenarios where the mother-in-law or like the in-laws have been like, oh, there's no need for her to continue to work. She's just going to come and live with us. Red flag. Red flag. Red flag. Like, legit. So you need to be transparent with your in-laws, and just, it's all about honesty, to just be like, I'm going to be working, so this is what I'll probably be able to do.
Realistically,
and it's probably going to be the same as what you're already doing around your parents' house,
which is fair and reasonable.
I think that's
because it's not like you coming into the house is going to create 500 times more mess.
It's really not, especially if you are going to be at work most of the time. You're probably going to be working, coming home, likely just having dinner, and then like sitting around.
But I think it does come back to like expectations. So if your mother-in-law is treating you like that, it's because she expected a daughter-in-law to behave like that, and maybe she was expected back in her day. But what people like that need to understand is that times have moved on. Times have changed, and it's not cool to treat people like that.
And
like
also,
it never was. But
who has given her that expectation? Like you have to speak with your husband.
True.
Because if your husband's like, yeah, she's going to come and she's going to do everything and she's going to take care of you guys. Because sometimes I find it's the husband who stirs the pot.
True.
And you're just like,
I
didn't agree to any of this, so why are you saying that?
That's
do you know what I mean? I think you need to be honest, open and honest with your husband before as well.
I agree. Do you want to read this one out? Sorry,
I feel like, you know, when you're in school and the teacher's like, makes everyone read, and I have to read. I can't read.
I'll read it if you want.
My experience has been so bad. My mother-in-law and sister-in-law are so controlling and want to take, but don't give, and expected so much from me. I've had to move back to my mum's because it's been so bad.
That is so sad.
That's really sad, actually.
I think that the fact that you've moved back to your mum's says a lot. On the one hand, it's good because you've kind of drawn a line under the sand, or you've drawn a line and said, like, I'm not putting up with this. I will not be in this environment anymore. So, you know, that's not that's not a bad thing.
Yeah.
But at the same time, where is your husband? This, like, what is he saying about this? Obviously, we can only go by so much context from the comments.
Yeah.
But the fact that it's your mother-in-law and your sister-in-law, because that's always wild to me as well, is like when it's not like
when they're ganging up.
Yeah, it's literally bullying. Like, it's literally adults bullying another adult who they've taken into their family as like their new sister, their new daughter, like, you know, their son or their brother's other half. For her to say that they're taking and they're controlling. I mean, you were not living under that circumstance before you got married, I'm assuming. So why should you have to put up with it now? Like, it's just not fair. I know of somebody who she was in a similar situation to you, and she had very, very, very controlling in-laws, and in the end her husband did not stand up for it, and he kept siding with his parents, unfortunately, and she got divorced and is now remarried and is happily married and alhamdulillah, and has children with her new husband, and could not be happier. So the reason why I'm telling you this, like, real story, so something happened in, you know, someone I actually know, is because I think a lot of the times when you're in a situation like that and you've taken the step to move away for however long, I think you need to really question if your husband can stand up for you, and if he can't. I know it sounds easier said than done, but there's no need to hang on to a marriage with people who are toxic, and it's really hard. It's really hard.
I think what it comes down to is your husband's love for you, and if your husband is seeing you in a situation where people are just, to put it quite frankly, being cruel to you, that you're having to go through this every single day, and your husband's just sitting there and not taking any steps to make it better, I think that just shows the extent of your husband's love. And in my opinion, he doesn't love you enough to stick up for you. And as sad as it is to walk away from something that once was, you know, something that was potentially very happy in a good relationship, things change, and you have to understand that you don't need to be in a situation just because it's a marriage. Like, yes, marriages are extremely important and there's a lot of goodness in them, but once it becomes toxic and once it becomes something that's no longer fulfilling you, what are you really getting out of it apart from saying that I'm married? Do you know what I think people... I think people just stay in marriages purely to, like, have that status of being married, and it's just not worth it. Like, no. And also, I understand divorce in South Asian community for some reason is still a taboo. Like, it's still, you know, not seen to be the right thing to do, which I don't understand, because Islamically it's absolutely fine to get a divorce. So it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter about anything else. Because if Islamically it's fine, then who's anyone to say anything to you?
Very true.
But again, like Iqra said, it's so easy for us to say this stuff to you, not knowing the entirety of the situation.
Yeah, but I think we're talking about it quite deeply, because at the end of the day, if your in-laws are affecting your life support, you feel like they're controlling you, your husband has to do something about it.
He has to step up.
Yeah. Like, we know you're not saying, like, my husband's abusive, my husband's this, my husband's that, but at the end of the day, the onus is on the husband because it's his family. Yeah. It's not your mum or your sister trying to control your life.
Yeah, the same way, like, if it was your parents doing it, we'd be giving you the same advice.
Absolutely.
To be like, you need to speak with your parents.
Absolutely.
You need to stick up for your husband.
Yeah.
Like, it'd be the same situation.
Totally, yeah. Which is why we're saying that, like, it does, the root of the problem there is your husband not doing what he needs to do. And if he basically puts his hand up and says, or whatever, or if he carries on letting it happen, or he says, I don't want to stand up to him, then you don't need to be with this man, because like, you deserve better, is what we're trying to say.
100%. And there is better out there. I feel like people are always under the impression that my life is over once I get a divorce or once I separate, and it's actually really not.
No.
It's really not. I know so many people of all ages who've had divorce and they've got married or they've stayed single, but it doesn't. Even if you divorce your husband or get separated or whatever, it doesn't matter whether you get remarried or stay separate, because you're better off than where you're going to be, where you are right now.
Yeah.
You are, because you're going to be happier.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you're going to be sad for a while and it's going to take time to heal, but you will heal. And once you've healed, you're just going to feel so much better than you
freer.
do right now.
No one will be controlling you. And that's the biggest thing. I think we have to think, like, that, like, marriage does come with compromise. Everyone says you have to compromise, 100%. You have to compromise. But compromising is not the same as accepting controlling behaviour, abusive behaviour, narcissistic behaviour.
No.
And I feel like the whole social media focus on mental health is amazing, because it's highlighting things that sometimes we just accept culturally. We're just like, well, that's just how things are. But actually, no, we don't need to accept it. Yeah. Okay, this comment got 14 thumbs up. And this lady says, you're definitely luckier than most. You have lived on your own and you will get to live on your own again someday. Some of us are stuck for the rest of our lives living together and never get to experience any kind of freedom, especially when our in-laws are strict. Meanwhile, I had such a laid back and chill life at home with my parents. I just don't know how to accept this is going to be my life for years and years to come.
This is such a classic scenario of like a girl having a very, very chill like experience with her parents and then living with her in-laws, and it's like
the opposite. Yeah.
But in my head, why have you not had this conversation before?
Yeah.
Like, why was this not discussed before with your husband, with his parents, what your situation was going to be, what the living circumstances were going to be? Again, coming from a privileged perspective, but I just feel like a lot of like that comment, that kind of situation could have perhaps been avoided.
Yeah.
And this is me just assuming that you didn't have a conversation like this beforehand, because God knows your husband could have told you a bunch of lies.
Yeah,
which I've, people do. People say, yeah, we'll live with our in-laws for like 3 months and then you save up and like move out. And I've seen situations like that, and I've heard of situations like that.
Stuck out to me in this comment was that she says some of us are stuck for the rest of our lives living together, and we never get to experience any kind of freedom. And my thing there is that you're not stuck as much as you feel stuck. Like, okay, let me take that back. You're stuck right now, but you don't have to be stuck forever. And it really is, again, on you to do something about it. And I think she has children as well, because she carried on replying to me.
Okay.
She said, "Thank you, I appreciate that, but I don't see any changing for me, unfortunately. For me, for my in-laws, living together is different between life and death, and they would disown us if we ever moved out. I don't understand this old backwards mentality. They're not physically or financially even dependent on us, although they do take money from us monthly that they don't even need. I never thought it would be this hard to get adjusted, and inshallah there are better days. Let's see what happens." And that just shook me. Like, that added so much more to the story that I had no idea about. Like,
I feel like that's so emotionally abusive and manipulative to be like, we're going to disown you if you don't live with us. Like, Islamically, there's nothing in the Quran about living with your in-laws.
No.
To my knowledge, anyway, there's really just nothing in the Quran. Of course, you have to and it's not even the wife's duty to look after her in-laws. No. And that's not to say she shouldn't, because I think morally, I think if your in-laws aren't well, you be there for them, whatever, do your best. Yeah. Not act like a slave for them or whatever, but obviously be there for them.
Yeah.
But I think that is just emotionally manipulative, abusive to say that if you don't live with us and don't continue to live with us, you're not
disowning you. Well,
for what?
Okay, then disown us then.
That's
how I would.
Why
feel.
Are you disowning us?
Yeah.
Probably because they're not going to be getting that probably £300 a month from them.
That was wild as well, because in my head I was thinking like, okay, well maybe they're elderly, because like to have this kind of mentality, like generally, I'm expecting someone in their 70s, right?
Yeah.
But she's like, they're not physically like dependent, so they're well physically, and they're not financially dependent. So I feel
Why
like,
do you take money from them?
do you know what? Some people are just incredibly controlling, and it's just it just breaks my heart for this woman, because like she is in a situation where she has got very, very strong opinions. Like some in-laws are just calm, relaxed, like, okay, well, if you want to do that, you do that, and maybe they're not too happy, but whatever. These people are literally saying, we'll disown you. Honestly, if I was you, I'd say, well, okay then. There's two ways it could go. You move out and they don't speak to you for a couple of months, maybe a year or two, whatever, and then they get over it. Or you move out and they don't speak to you again, but you have your freedom, space, like clear headspace. You're not, you're not living in a situation where you are essentially being manipulated and controlled, and
they will turn it around on you. And because the way that they seem to be, it'll be she didn't appreciate us, we gave her a house to live in, she went away and like left us, whatever. But at the end of the day, like, your happiness is important. I just don't understand why nobody takes into consideration the daughter-in-law's happiness. In these situations, like, why are you compromising so much and getting very little in return? Like, that's not fair. You used to have such a brilliant life back home with your parents. They want your like parents, if they, I assume, like, you don't tell them the full story, because I feel like people in this situation don't want their parents to worry. But like, if your parents knew, they would be so hurt at the fact that somebody is like taking advantage basically of their daughter. I think you genuinely need to say to your husband, I can't do this anymore. And if you have to take your kids and leave, take your kids and leave.
Yeah, because my also thought just there was like, I think you do, I think she said she had kids.
Yeah.
But imagine 20 years down the line, that's your daughter. What would you say to your daughter?
Yeah.
You would not say
you
to her,
wouldn't stand for it.
Just stay, just wait it out.
And also, not even your daughter, if your friend came to you in this situation, and I know it's easier to say to other people than it is to do for yourself.
It is.
But like, want for yourself what you actually want for others, what you want for your daughter, and what you want for your friends. Want that for yourself as well, and go get it. Go out there and say to your husband, I can't do this anymore. This is too controlling. I want to live a life where I feel like I'm actually able to breathe.
Absolutely.
Bare minimum, if you ask me.
Your mental health, for the sake of you and your children, is so much more important than what everyone else thinks. Because at the end of the day, this family seem to be one that really care about what other families think. Like, oh, their children left them, their children don't want to live with them. Oh, there must be something going on behind closed doors.
It's like that anymore. It's literally 2021. We've gone through a whole ass pandemic.
And do you know what?
Who still has these thoughts?
But if people do, then that just shows how backwards they are.
So what? Yeah.
And just like, literally, do you know what? People are going to talk regardless. They're going to talk regardless of what you do.
Yeah. If your in-laws are, if you say this is how your in-laws are, it's likely that they're already, and God forgive me if I'm wrong, but it's likely they're already talking negatively about you. Because I'm sorry, having people that are controlling in your life are not good people.
No.
They're not.
No, exactly. Someone replied to that a month ago saying, I know how you feel, girl. It's been 6 years that I'm living with my in-laws and I have 4 kids. Not having the privacy, the freedom, it's really hard. I don't even have control over my own kids. And I go outside maybe once a week.
Once a week? First of all, I don't understand why she doesn't have control of her own kids. Like, that is bang out of order. Like, this is another thing. There's no boundaries when you live with your in-laws when you have kids.
Yeah.
Because I feel like they can raise them the way they raised their children.
Yeah.
And they would expect you to raise them that way as well. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying like, people back in the day didn't raise their children well, but there's just such a difference now.
Yeah, or even Islamically, you're not supposed to raise your kids the way you were raised, because each generation is different. Yeah. That's actually an Islamic thing. So I just, that comment just like broke my heart for this person, because we say ourselves that like going outside for our daily walk is what keeps us sane.
100%. Like,
once in a week with 4 children. Like, I cannot...
But that makes me think she's probably having to do everything around the house.
Yeah.
She's not... because you can't... like, you would have the time to go out at least more than once a week, but it's probably that she's just not had the time.
Yeah, and if it's been 6 years and 4 kids, they're probably babies and toddlers. They're not like...
No, they're not going to be like old...
school-age kids,
yeah, 100%.
School run, that sort of thing. And that's a lot in itself. Like, I can't... Mate, we can't even imagine at this stage having one child, one baby with the lives that we live, let alone 4 in that environment. Honestly, my first thought there after really feeling for you is, like, where is your husband? What is he doing? What does he think?
Why is he not helping you with the kids?
Why is he not helping? How does he feel? I mean, he probably is thinking that, like, well, at least mum and dad can help her.
Yeah, I feel like for the husband, it's actually better because he can be like, oh, we've got help.
Yeah.
I don't need to lift a finger.
Yeah.
My mum's here, my dad's here. They can raise our kids. And the wife, I feel like, feels it more because she's carried these children. She's like, I want to raise them the way that I want to raise them.
Yeah.
These are my kids. I want to have that bond with them. I want to raise them in such a way where I feel is right. The husband, I feel like in these situations, it's a very typical Pakistani thing. Doesn't really care.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, whatever, like, you know, I'll take the kids to football once a week. You know, I know that's very stereotypical.
Job done.
But do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's just that, almost that way of then him just being like, actually, I've got it pretty lucky, pretty good. And that's probably why he's not saying anything, because he knows how good he has it, because it doesn't really affect him.
Oh, it's just so hard.
Frustrating.
It's so frustrating. Like, it's so hard to know, like, what to say as well, because, like, with children that young as well, like, they're all dependent on you as their mother, but they're not having control over them, and, like, not... It seems that you don't really have, like, a routine in place, and...
Yeah.
Do you know what? Just, like, I know you've literally written a few sentences, but I feel like there's a little bit of postpartum depression going on. I don't know if I'm jumping too much there, but...
It probably will be. And the fact that, like, it's been 6 years, you've had 4 kids, you probably had them relatively close together.
Yeah.
You've probably not even had a chance to, like, bounce back from, like,
and catch
each
your breath
that you had.
Yeah.
And the fact that you're feeling all this, like, external pressure from your in-laws and just, like, trying to, like, live a life, but you can't even really have a life to live. It's very difficult.
Oh, I just seen she replied a week ago.
Oh,
so I replied to her saying, how does your husband feel with living at home, and have you suggested having your own space? And she said that he says he is the one that has to take care of them, as in his parents. She says that I get that, but my in-laws are in their mid-40s. That's younger than my parents. And they're not sick.
That's younger than my parents.
Mid-40s, not sick. And they can take care of themselves perfectly fine. So I'm stuck for the rest of my life, and I just don't enjoy my life anymore. And with a mother-in-law that makes everything more difficult, she is really overbearing. Sis, I wish we could give you a hug right now. Like,
The thing I don't
wish we could give you a hug.
understand is, like, he's basically saying that he needs to look after his parents. Name me one thing he actually does. What does he actually do for his parents?
Yeah. Even if he pays their mortgage, right? If he's got an amazing job, you don't have to live in the same house to pay mortgage.
And I don't mean, like, financially, what does he do? Like, genuinely, like, what does he do?
That's wild.
Does he lift your parents up the stairs?
Mid-40s.
My parents are older than that. Alhamdulillah, my mum is older than that, and she is more than capable.
More than capable.
So are your parents?
Yeah. My parents are just turned 50.
Oh my gosh.
They would, like, laugh at me in the face if I said that we need to live with you to go with you. They'd be like, out you go.
They're like,
go.
No, we got rid of you.
Literally. They'd be like, what are you talking about? That's what puzzles me about this, though, is that, like, why are his parents not saying anything? Well,
I feel like if she's saying that her mother-in-law is challenging.
True.
She might be, like,
overbearing.
Mixing the pot, a little bit of spices.
A little bit? It sounds like a whole pot of spices right there.
She's putting the whole tub in, you know what I'm saying? All of it.
I don't know what I would do in that situation, apart from... scream.
I just find it odd, because I always think, like, were you, like, was it a love marriage? Was it arranged? Were you ever in love with this person? Were you hopeful? And it just makes me sad, because I'm like, I feel like everyone who goes into a marriage is very hopeful. And then when things like this happen, it's like, why is this happening to me?
Yeah.
And it's almost as if, like, because she keeps saying, like, I'm never, like, what did you say? I'm not going to have a happy life.
She said, I'm stuck for the rest of my
stuck.
life.
And I don't, like...
We want you to know you're not stuck for the rest of your life.
As much as the scenario you're in as like
upsetting
and is not ideal. You're not stuck in that scenario.
No.
But the way to get out of that scenario might not be ideal.
No. It's not going to be easy.
Yeah.
It's not going to be easy. Because your husband's saying that he needs to look after them. Okay, sir.
Seems
look
fake.
after them. But
that's suspicious, okay?
Do you know what? In 30 years' time, when your parents are, his parents are in their 70s and they need physical support, maybe then when your children are grown up and have their own lives, maybe then they can come to some sort of arrangement. Right now, in their mid-40s, when they are totally fine.
Yeah.
Like, even just like...
Just turn around and say to your husband, you need to go and look after your parents. Take your kids, just go to your parents and be like, well, I need to look after them.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah, because if he needs to look after his parents.
That's so true. Do you know what? That's so true. Like, why is it always the onus on the husband's parents as well? Like,
I always feel like, what happened to the wife's parents? Who looks after
if it just disappeared because she's married now. It just, he's not making sense. And it seems like, for whatever reason, he's comfortable, he doesn't want to pay
100%.
buy a house. Or, you don't need to buy a house, you can rent. There's nothing wrong with renting.
Options.
There are so many options, and I feel like I'm sure you have told him that how you feel, but I think I actually would agree with you. I would take the kids, and especially because they're not in school age or whatever, and I would go to my parents and just wait it out and see, because you know what, sometimes people need to see action before they hear your words.
Yeah. I think it's very easy to be like, well, I'm going to go take the kids and I'm never coming back, or I'm not going to come back until you agree to what is going to make me feel comfortable.
And it's only when you actually leave that he's going to be like, oh, well, she actually feels strongly about this.
Don't call his bluff. Actually, just do it.
Do it. Yeah. What have you got to lose?
Exactly. Because if you're saying you already feel like you can never be happy again, or you're stuck, then really you're right. There's nothing to lose.
There's nothing to lose.
And honestly, if you lose your husband, I'm putting this in inverted commas because he's not acting like a husband.
He's not.
And if you lose your in-laws just because of something like this, because you're kind of asking for something that's well within your rights, then good. Get them to heck.
True, no, I totally agree. I just think in the situation and the lady before as well, I understand, and again, praise for privilege, we have not experienced what we've experienced. But alhamdulillah, but we are saying this because we want everyone to live their best lives. Yeah. And no one is stuck where they are. You're only stuck if you allow other people to believe you're stuck. Yeah. And listen, if I had a controlling, narcissistic family member telling me every day, this is your life, you're going to do this, you're going to do this, and essentially controlling me, I would feel like that too. My self-esteem would be down here.
And that's exactly what they want. They want to get you to a point that you're at rock bottom, that you think there's no way of getting up, that you just stay there. Yeah. But see, when people tell you, actually, you can get past this. You just need to take the first step. Genuinely, that's all you need to do. You just need to take the first step. And if that first step is leaving that household, leave that household. If that first step is leaving your husband in general, leave him. Yeah. Because at the end of the day, if you're at rock bottom, the only way is up. Genuinely. Yeah.
And it just breaks our heart when you're saying, this is my life for the rest of my life.
It's not.
It really is not, and we know it's harder than it feels. I mean, we know it's harder to actually do it, but you have to do it for yourself and your kids. Yeah. Okay, another person replied to that same commenter 2 weeks ago. It's actually a man, and he says, Salam, I am in the same predicament as you're describing, but I am a man living with my spouse in her country, overseas with her mother, and it is not a smooth ride. I am cut off from my family and country, trapped being a stay-at-home dad of 4 children, aged between 2 to 9. I don't know how to find happiness. My kids keep me in the relationship. I am ganged up on and blamed for everything. My wife has BPD.
Maybe borderline personality disorder.
And my mother-in-law, borderline personality disorder, just like my wife, in my opinion. Hard to respect people who are hurting you all the time and being irrational.
It's quite refreshing to hear a man's perspective.
I was not expecting that.
You never really hear the man who's compromised to go live with his in-laws. Yeah. Which is nice. Unfortunately, it's that circumstance. Yeah.
But the first thing I thought of straight away was for him to say I'm being hurt all the time, is that you're in an emotionally manipulative relationship, which I think a lot of these commenters are, to be honest. And where you said that, you know, you don't have to find happiness, but your children are keeping the relationship. Again, I know it's so much easier to say it than do it, but your children, the oldest is 9, they are going to be able to absorb
100%.
the atmosphere around them. 100%. They're going to be able to absorb the toxicity, the arguments, your mood, your feeling. So, alhamdulillah, you've got your 4 children, but they don't need to be the reason you stay in that marriage, especially if you are being hurt all the time. Like, regardless of the circumstances and why you're being hurt, because there's no reason for anyone to stick into a relationship just because we've got children and we've got kids. Like, what do you think about?
No, I agree. Like, first of all, it sets the tone for what your children are going to accept in the future. If your children see, like, oh, well, you know, mum shouts at dad like that, so it's fine that, like, you know, my wife shouts at me here and there in the future, like, that's going to be their kind of foundation to what a relationship looks like, or what a relationship should be, and that is not healthy. I come from divorced parents, and genuinely, I think if my parents were still together, my brain would be fried. Like, I just think, and I have so many friends who say to me, like, I wish my parents would just get a divorce or split up because it was just, or I wish they did when I was living with them because it was just the hardest thing.
Because a lot of people stay together for the kids, but actually, what are you doing? Like,
at the end of the day, your kids love you, and your kids want just as much as you want the best for your kids want the best for you.
Absolutely.
And as long as, you know, you explain to them, you know, mum and dad will still love you, but we just don't really have that love for each other anymore in that way, you know.
And the healthiest thing to do is
it's just split up.
Be apart.
It's fine. But I think it's really sad that he's saying that, like, you know, he's hurting every single day. Because at the end of the day, like, if you're a stay-at-home dad, you're, like, looking after your kids all the time. You're saying that you're hurting every day.
And he's also with his mother-in-law, who he says has also got borderline personality disorder.
Yeah, it's not a good environment for you. But also, if your mother-in-law and her daughter genuinely have been diagnosed with these mental illnesses, and I know this might come across as harsh, but it's not. You don't have to stay with somebody just because you feel bad because they've got a mental illness.
Yeah.
People with mental illnesses still know how to treat other people well.
Yeah.
You know, my mum, she has a mental illness, but she doesn't treat me like shit.
She doesn't
treat her family like shit. She doesn't treat, like, I don't think that's an excuse for you to stay. And I know he didn't directly say that, but I feel like there's tones of guilt that you'll feel that, oh, if I leave her, like, I'm going to be leaving this person who's unwell. But at the end of the day, like, if, like, somebody is abusing you, essentially, you are.
Yeah.
You know.
I'm ganged up on and blamed for everything. Yeah.
And, like, that's not the way to be in a relationship, you know.
And also, like you said, like, what are you showing your children? So you're saying that you're saying this relationship for your children, but then you're showing your children that it's okay to allow people to treat you like that. Yeah. And not just people, but there should be your closest family, your spouse and your mother-in-law. Not, you know, I just think again, like, none of what we're saying is like super easy, go and get a new house, or, you know, whatever, but take steps to get the liberation you deserve. Yeah. And you need to understand, though, like Mario was saying, that the best thing you can do is split up and focus on giving your children a brilliant future from a distance 100%. To their mum and grandma. Yeah. Because you can do that. At the end of the
day, like, you're always going to be their dad, and you will always have a right to be in their life. Always. The courts are very, very, like, they always want the kids to have a relationship with both their parents. Yeah. Like, they always do what's the best interest for the child. Yeah. Regardless of whether one party is cheated or, you know, they always look at what is the best interest for the child. And 9 times out of 10, the best interest for the children is to see both of their parents. Especially if separately both their parents are fine. Yeah. It's just together they don't work. Yeah. Fair enough. The court will never, you know, it's always the children are at the forefront of this. They're
Yeah.
going to be the ones who probably will get hurt the most. So the court will always kind of take steps to make sure that the children's best interests are taken into consideration.
Absolutely. The main thing is as well is because like before you even met this person who you now are not getting along with or their family or whatever, you were fine. You were a complete individual. You had your own life. You had your dreams and aspirations.
Yeah.
No marriage or relationship should ever put a stop to that, but not only put a stop to that, but change your standard of life to make it way lower, where you feel like you're being manipulated, controlled, regardless of if you've got children or not. And children are going to be happiest when they know you are happiest. Like, that's in my experience.
I agree.
Especially,
and your happiness will come off onto them.
They'll be able to
just
take
the same way that they absorb the sadness, the negativity, they'll absorb the happiness as well.
Absolutely. And when they're older, you know, then you can explain maybe a little bit more about why things had to be a certain way. But at the moment, they're children and they just want to see you, you know, being the best version of yourself. And you can't do that if you're in an environment that's going to drag you down. So
I agree.
You got this, guys. You have got this. Someone says, if you want your marriage to last and work, move out now. Exclamation marks.
Was that directed to you?
Well, I don't know. Maybe. Maybe. Let me see the replies. I said, oh, they sounded so urgent. And I said, we did move out in October. And then she actually replied and she said, I'm saying from personal experience because my own cousin attempted suicide 4 times a few years ago living with in-laws. She's had an unsupportive husband and she's still living a miserable life. See these unsupportive husbands? Can we just throw them all into a bin collectively?
They deserve to go in the bin.
Like, imagine your wife has tried to commit suicide. She said 4 times. And also, the thing is though, when you're in so much of a dark place, you're trying to commit suicide, you probably don't have the resources and mindset to be able to leave a situation. That is on your spouse then to be like,
I agree.
Oh, hang on, this has gone way too far and something has gone really wrong here and my wife needs to come first, or vice versa, my husband needs to come first. Ugh.
I also think South Asians are the worst for it when it's to do with mental illness and suicide. And some way they will 100% have turned it around in the wife to be like, she's just crazy. Yeah. Like, you know. Yeah.
Or it's a jinn. It's a jinn that's inside her and he's telling her to not live anymore. You know, it's like, no, it's you and your manipulative.
It's actually the fact that you're just so toxic that this person, you drove this person to commit suicide 4 times. To attempt suicide 4 times.
That's just heartbreaking.
First of all, that's so sad that, if you think about it, life is such a precious thing. It's such a precious thing. And you have driven somebody to that extent that they feel the need that the only way that they can get out of the situation they're in is to take their own life.
It's just wow.
To take their own life. A life that God has given them. Who are you to make somebody feel that way?
Yeah.
I just think these people have no fear of God in them.
It's true.
No fear of God in them, and I think that is the scariest thing ever, because how can you make someone feel so bad that they have got to that stage? And how can you as a husband
just watch
see your wife try to commit suicide 4 times? After the first time, I would not let my wife or myself back into the household.
Yeah, I know.
Absolutely not.
I know.
Sorry, but your husband does not love you if he does that.
Literally.
And you can't change your mind on that.
No, totally agreed. Lady says, you're lucky to have an understanding sister-in-law and mother-in-law. I don't have any sister-in-laws and I don't need it because my mother-in-law was sweet before my marriage, but after the marriage she didn't take long to show how controlling she can be.
Oh gosh.
I'm trying to adjust. Occasionally she's fine and sweet, but most of the time it's suffocating living with my in-laws because they are so service demanding. There's no help and only I have to cook and do the dishes. I wish I had not accepted to live with them and I feel so trapped.
Again, it comes back to expectations before marriage, and it's everyone is sweet until you live with them. People will always show you their true colours when you live with them. And it's not even to say that they're bad things. Just little habits that annoy you about somebody, or somebody's messy, or another person's very particular about the way they like things. Yeah. But the fact that they're so demanding that it's you doing the dishes, you doing whatever, like, why?
It comes back to that, like, a daughter-in-law equals a maid, which
which is
no,
not true.
we're not here for.
But it's a shame that she did act very sweet beforehand. But see, like, that always makes me suspicious.
Yeah.
That makes me suspicious. And I always, like, and I think if you're to live with your in-laws, it's just a lesson that, like, you need to state your expectations and then see how they respond to that.
Yeah.
Because how they respond to that will set the tone.
Absolutely. Like, if they have got a certain expectations for you to be the maid role, they're not going to like you even asking expectations.
No.
And I asked this lady, have you spoken to them about how you're feeling with your husband, and what has he said about it? And in a shared household, all the work should be split. It shouldn't be one person. She sent a really, really long reply. But let me just tell you the gist, is that she basically said, and this is her words, not mine, he's a little mama's boy, and he gets really emotional if I say anything bad about them, which I understand, but he knows that his mother-in-law is a bit of a clean freak, and like, so basically the comment goes on to say that the in-laws actually stay in the hometown, so this is afterwards now, and visit us occasionally, which is why I treat them well, which you should. But I get really frustrated when the amount of workload that increases when they visit, because my mother-in-law chooses to do only what she wants to do, like the gardening, and she tries to control everything in the house. And I'm asked to be in the kitchen most of the time. It feels like a total invasion of the house, and as if I'm being controlled by some strict, hostile warden who wants everything according to her taste and ways. I've complained to my husband so many times, we've even had arguments about it, and all he says is that they're only here for a few days, just adjust, and that's what I'm doing. Okay, so her mother-in-law gets offended as well if she goes anywhere out, because her mother-in-law expects her to be cooking. And she does say that they are older people, they're senior citizens, they're super active and can take care of themselves, but they are older, and they like to act like the 90-year-old people.
Firstly, if they're living in the same town, right, is that what she said?
Yeah, she did.
Why the hell are they coming to stay?
Yeah.
What is it with her in-laws and being the absolute worst? Like all of a sudden, she's got her own house, obviously, her own space, and then her mother-in-law is like
in the house,
telling her she needs to be in the kitchen while she's outside doing the gardening. First of all, it's not your garden. Get your paws out. Like, when she's really digging up, probably digging your grave, mate. That's what she's doing. Like, that's what she's out there. Like, that's why she wants you in the kitchen, so you don't see what she's doing. Oh my seriously, like, it's your house, it's your rules. If she doesn't like it, she can stay in her little house.
No, what do you feel about the husband saying, like, it's just a few days?
I feel like the husband is
another waste of space.
I need to think of a word that I was about to swear. I feel like this is a very family-friendly channel.
She says herself he's a mama's boy.
I think the husband is just tiptoeing around the fact that, one, he 100% knows his mum is batshit crazy. This is not normal behaviour. You don't go into somebody else's home and start doing the gardening.
And being like, you need to be in the kitchen.
First of all,
can you imagine? No, we would not even do it to our mothers, like in their homes. We'd not be like, oh mum, you should be in the kitchen. Like, oh, even saying that is like, oh my god, like how can you? Again, it comes down to this like ownership thing of like, you are my son's wife, so you will do what I say. Like, no honey, your son is my husband.
Yeah.
And you know what? We're all adults here. Like, the fact that
I think you need to pretend like you're not home when she comes over. No,
yeah.
Like, I think you need to just not answer the door.
To be honest, clearly boundaries need to be set.
That's the issue. Like,
boundaries.
It just shows
that
the issue wasn't you living with your in-laws.
No.
The issue is your mother-in-law not understanding what the boundaries are, and your husband isn't helping by just being like, oh, it's fine,
just
it's only a few days. Why are they staying with you to begin with?
Yeah.
That's bizarre to me.
Yeah, they don't even live in another country. They live in the same town.
They live in the same town. Like, I don't understand why they still, like, sorry, but
there's no need.
Do you know what you should do? You should tell your husband to go back to his in-laws. I mean, his parents' house, and you can stay in that house.
True.
Because clearly he's not doing what you like require from him. Like, he needs to say to his mum, you're overbearing, because she is overbearing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, what the heck?
Absolutely.
What? Even if my own
That's
mum, like,
wild.
sorry, truly, even if my own mum was coming over, like, and doing gardening and, like, telling me what I can and can't do in my own house, I'd just be a bit like, Mum, it's not your home.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
You know, and as much as,
Yeah.
like, I love having you here, you can't say that to me.
Yeah, and you can
He
be
should be
polite.
doing that
You
to
can
his
be in that. You
mum.
can, yeah, you can say, "Mum, please,
Yeah.
please stop because this is causing my wife to be upset."
Yeah.
And but you know what? Then actually, if he says that, then it might be like, "Oh, well, your wife shouldn't be so soft or so pathetic." Do you know what I mean? Like,
Hun, you're coming in with a spade and doing her gardening. Like, what do you mean?
that is wild. That is wild. But you know what?
I'm sorry, but like,
No.
I just have a wee image of this like little old South Asian woman turning up and being like, "Hey, how's it going?
But
I'll be back out. You stay in the kitchen."
I feel like though she's probably been like, "I am doing your gardening. The least you can do is listen to me." Do you know what I mean? Like she's not even doing it to be nice. It's
First
more like
of all,
her. If I'm helping
Literally, who
you,
asked you? Who said to you, "My dearest mother-in-law, please bring a spade with you next time you come over, because you're on garden duty"? Like,
where's the life? Where is the
I
life?
don't understand.
No, I just think some people
What
are wild.
happens?
Some people are wild.
Boundaries,
Anyway.
people. Boundaries.
Yes. Right. This one is not really like one that's been unanswered. We did have a conversation, but I think it's interesting to speak about. So
Cool.
the lady says, "What if he's still bent on moving in with them? I cannot do this. It is not me." Which I like that. I like that you have got a clear boundary there, and you've said like, "I can't do it." My answer to her was that, "Are you already married? Because if you aren't, this could be a reasonable deal breaker." In my opinion, it's not by force, and we're encouraged in Islam to have our own privacy, and it's culture that dictates otherwise.
I think, and in my opinion, I think you should always have a list of things that are non-compromisable before you get married.
Yeah.
So whatever it may be.
Deal
Obviously
breakers,
they
red
have to
flags.
be like reasonable, and I can't be like, "Oh, my husband has to be earning like £1 million," because like, hun, who do you want your husband to be at this point? But like if it's something like living with in-laws, because obviously you seem pretty much set in your ways that you don't want to live with your in-laws.
Which is fine.
Which is absolutely
Yeah.
fine. And
Yeah.
I think it's 100% a reason to not continue with the marriage. Because
Yeah.
why should you compromise something that you just don't want to compromise on? I think if you're right in saying that if you're not married yet, then don't compromise that.
So she
Read the
replied,
comments.
she replied, mate, after this, like, yeah. She replied saying, "Not married, but he's in his 30s, he cooks, and he helps the finances of the home, just boys in the house, and he does most of everything. He's talented in every way, damn. But it feels like
What
he's
kind of
being
ways?
it feels like he's being tied because he's mature and respects his family greatly." So then I said, "Look, alhamdulillah, although he sounds like a good catch, if it's a deal breaker for you, then set your boundaries and stick to them. If it's written for you, he will be your husband. But if not, inshallah, someone better will come along.
Yeah.
If you wanted to compromise, you could do 6 or 12 months with them and then move out. But I'd only suggest that if he promises, like literally written in your nikah contract, by the way, that
You
he
can
is
do
on
that, by the
board."
way.
Yeah, you
Yeah,
can.
people don't know this.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. However, if he can't see his life without living with his parents, you'll end up overcompromising, choosing a life that you didn't want. And life gives us enough battles as it is. So don't let this be one of them if you're not comfortable with it.
Yeah, I agree. I think that if he's so strongly saying that he doesn't want to leave his parents' house, and you make that like a kind of a deal breaker and say that, well, if you don't, then we're not going to get married, and he ends up compromising, he might resent you for it. He might resent you, and it might set that tone for your relationship. I think it needs to be both of you saying like, right, we're going to have our own place and we're not going to live with in-laws. Because if he's so hell-bent on staying with his with his parents, then it is a bit of a red flag. Also, like, sorry, but like, he can't be that great of a catch if he's not going to leave his family at home. Like, that to me is like major red flag. Like,
yeah, because you know what?
red
It's
flag.
completely codependency. Like,
Yeah,
why can you not
that's
imagine
what it
life
is.
without living in the same?
Like, nobody's asking you to move cities or to move countries.
No, and some people have. Do you know what I mean? Like, some people have compromised.
Yeah.
We say some people because we both have moved to Dundee for our mans. like, why is it that men are not only so entitled that they think that they don't have to move anywhere, but that they don't even have to move out of the house? I feel like men like that just don't deserve, like, a fantastic wife.
Yeah.
So just don't do it.
And also, you're talking about him being a catch. I bet you you're a catch.
Yeah.
I bet you're an absolute catch. Like, 100%. I feel like, you know, girls act like finding a guy who's brilliant is like, you know, that's the only reason that you should stay with them. Like, sorry, but if they are not meeting your bare minimum standard, then how great really are they?
Exactly. This is why it's good to have these conversations before you catch feelings as well. Yeah. I feel like once those feelings are caught, you're gonna try and bend and twist.
It's like rose-coloured glasses. You start wearing them and you're like, oh, I'll be fine. Like, I love him and it's gonna work out. And just scroll through the comments, girl. Just scroll through the comments.
Exactly. This really lovely lady last comment, which I'm not going to read because we have been talking for like over an hour now. But if you want to read it, it's on the video. But it's basically she's saying how she's got a similar experience to me. She really loves her in-laws, but obviously she also would like to have space at some point, which totally agree. Someone says, don't ever live with in-laws, ever. Talk about it before you marry him, and if he doesn't agree, don't marry him. Yeah. And then the last comment on this video was, in Islam, a man has to provide separate living quarters and there is a much better way to live than what Pakistani culture demands. Yeah. As a British Pakistani woman, I want to avoid marrying anyone from the Indian subcontinent just to avoid the cultural issue. Which I think, like, I do understand because I feel like a lot of Pakistanis are like this. Not all of them.
I think South Asians.
Yeah, well, she said Indian actually. Yeah,
I think South Asians are very, very cultural driven.
There's nothing wrong with being proud of your culture,
but there's a fine line between culture and Islam,
and where like culture is like you're overriding Islam. With culture. That is to me like when a family can do that very easily. It's like, do I actually really want to be part of this family?
Yeah, that would be a red flag for me, like instantly.
Yeah.
I do think like. It does tend to be South Asians. I know that like there are different cultures that do live with their in-laws and stuff like that, but I think it's predominantly South Asians. I don't know if it's like an Arab thing.
I don't know anyone who's Arab who lives with in-laws.
Yeah, I don't either. So
no,
I think it is a South Asian thing, and I think it's almost like such a like, especially from these comments, you can see how much it still is an issue. Like, not, like, that in-laws think it's, like, such a big deal to not live with them.
Yeah, and a lot of people... I know, it is.
Because at the end of the day, if you think about a marriage, you're starting a new life with you and your husband.
Yeah.
And it's, like, a marriage between you and your husband, not you, your husband, and his in-laws.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, when they say, like, you marry the family, it doesn't mean you actually have to live with the family, too.
Yeah, of course.
Like, of course you're going to spend time with them.
100%.
And make an effort with them. 100%. And be an asset to their family as they are an asset to your family.
Agreed.
But you don't have to live within each other's, like... So you don't need to see each other in all the ways. Bedhead, you know, like, all the different 100%. Emotions to be family.
And that it comes again to, like, boundaries and drawing a line.
Yeah.
Your in-laws, and I think, and I'm always going to be of the opinion, you need to respect your in-laws.
100%.
You need to be, you know, kind to your in-laws, because at the end of the day, like, that's your husband's parents, that's your husband's siblings. You want to have a good relationship with them, because especially like us, we moved to a different city, we want to have people around us that we like can hang out with and actually have a good relationship with.
Absolutely.
So you want that, but that doesn't say that you have to constantly be like, you don't have to be a slave to them, and you don't have to live with them.
No.
And also, almost certainly you'll have a better relationship with them if you don't live with them, because you're not always around each other. Yeah. And like, for example, we have siblings. How much do you argue with your siblings? Like, and now, I bet you have such a better relationship with your siblings now than you did
100%.
before. And even your parents.
Because that time is much more precious now.
Yeah, because now you're like, why are we arguing? Like, you're going to be leaving in a week. Let's spend that time together. And I just think that's the same way. If you have that space with your in-laws, every time you see them, like you say, it's special. It's important.
Exactly. And the reality is you're not going to necessarily have arguments with your in-laws the way you do with your own family.
Yeah.
But you're still going to have disagreements that sometimes, because they're your in-laws and you've got that level of respect or that level of, like, you know, it's not your own parents, you can't say, and that sometimes causes even more problems because it's just that
It's a
brewing
build up.
Yeah.
And then accidentally one day you might say something.
And a lot of the times that does impact your marriage too. So it's I do know some people who are happily living with their in-laws and have done, you know.
Yeah, that I feel like we need to say that as well.
Yeah.
There's obviously living with your in-laws is not a negative experience for everyone.
No.
Predominantly those comments were very negative just because like people like to share, like we said, you know, their experience. And
and feel like they're not alone.
Yeah, 100%. And that's kind of what your channel's about. That's why you like to speak about things like this that maybe some other people don't speak about. But that's, again, not to say that people don't have good experiences. People have bad experiences. People have good experiences. Just like most things in life, nobody has the exact same experience.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So to everyone who left a comment, I hope that our thoughts and insights and advice gave you some help. I think the main thing, inshallah, is just to like, please don't feel like you're stuck in any situation.
No, you always have God.
You
and
do.
I think that's something that always helps me. If I feel upset or if I feel like, you know, almost stuck in a situation, when I turn to God, things almost instantly, like genuinely almost instantly just get better. And I feel like sometimes, and I'm not saying, you know, prayer is going to be like the thing that like gets you out of this rut, but like honestly turning to God and just taking those steps as well will really help you.
And make specific dua that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, like, please Ya Allah, help me through this test. And think of it as a test.
Because it is.
It is.
God never ever puts us through anything that isn't a test.
No.
Like everything we do in this lifetime is a test.
And I do feel like saying that you're stuck, I understand like that feeling of like feeling like you're stuck, but like saying that you're stuck is like saying that there's no hope, but there's always hope when we have Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And like most of you guys have like Muslim sounding names, so we might be assuming here that you know,
obviously we're assuming that you believe in God.
But such a good point. Like ask Allah for help and take steps, and there's so many organizations that are out there to help you guys as well.
Also a lot of I thought it was our neighbours. Also, a lot of the women with children, even if you don't have your own parents to fall back on, and it might not be the most ideal situation, but you can get council homes.
Yeah.
And if you have children, they will prioritise you.
Yes.
They will 100%. And it might not be the most ideal situation, but it will be better 100%. I can guarantee you will feel so like a weight lifted off your shoulder, and you'll feel happier in your heart knowing that you and your children are in a place where it is yours, and that you won't be in a situation where you're being controlled or your in-laws are over your head or your husband isn't supporting you. At the end of the day, if your husband isn't currently supporting you, then you're going to be basically like, you're not going to be any worse off.
No.
Than if you move in.
Yeah, and you'll be told, by the way, from your in-laws and whoever else is being manipulated that you're doing the wrong thing.
You're making a mistake.
You're not.
That's what they want you to think, because they benefit from having you doing everything.
Absolutely.
At the end of the day, you have to look at it as like, you are an asset to them.
Yeah.
They benefit from you cleaning, from you cooking, from you, you know, being there to serve them. Once you're gone, their life is going to change.
Yeah.
Yours is going to get better.
Absolutely. And if you look at every other culture, like you said, who else is doing all of that?
Yeah.
Like, who else is, like, nobody, because, like, you have to have that willpower to want the best life for you and in turn your children. The better off you are, the better off your children are. So anyone who's like feeling like, oh, I need to stay here for my children, like, trust me, your children will thank you for doing the best thing for you.
Yeah.
It will be hard. We're not saying it's not going to be easy. It will
Please
be hard.
don't think we're saying this from a point of view to be like, yeah, just go and do it now and it's going to be fine. We understand the impact that this will have in your life, and we understand that it's not easy, but what we're saying is
a year from now,
because you're saying you're stuck, like, we truly don't believe you're stuck, and we understand the feeling of being stuck, because I feel like we've all been in a situation where you think, and maybe not to the extent that you feel it, but we have felt like, and I know I have felt like, oh my gosh, like, I'm never going to get out of this, like, rut or whatever, and you do. And from, you know, the help of yourself and the help of others, it's always good to confide in others too. I feel like that's important to do. You know, find somebody you trust and really ask them for your help, and just let them know how serious the situation is.
Absolutely. And if you don't have any like close friends or anything, there are women's groups available and stuff online as well. And I'm assuming that most of you, obviously, if you left a comment on a YouTube video, you've got access to the internet.
Yeah.
Like, there's so much stuff out there. So we're keeping you guys in our duas, inshallah, and we hope you enjoyed that video. It's super long. I'll probably split into 2, I'm guessing.
Really?
Because it's like an hour and a half.
Oh my goodness.
But yeah.
This is why we just need to get our podcast
yes,
on the go.
Oh my gosh. So yeah, if you guys want to see a podcast of me and Maria, I am so ready for that, honestly. Like, I'm so ready.
We have too much to say about everything.
We do.
Basically.
And to be honest, we are very open. We will honestly happily talk about anything that is helpful and beneficial.
Yeah.
And that is taboo, because why
if
should things
there's
be
anything
taboo?
that you guys genuinely want us to touch on, we
Please let us
will.
know.
We'll go for it. And if you have any questions, like, leave them down below.
Yeah, leave it
Just
down
took
below.
over there.
No, I love it.
I was like, and anyway.
Sorry, hello, natural over here. I love it. No, anyway, we're better end the video now. So thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed it, let us know and hit a big thumbs up, and I'll see you in our next video. Bye. Assalamualaikum. Hello everyone. Welcome back to the channel. I don't know what did that.
I was looking at that aim.
So guys, who wants a podcast with Maria and her various accents?
Nobody needs to hear that, honestly.
So good.
Why are you drinking water? We were like, I